Good morning, everybody, and I'm here again with my colleague, Mike Angelucci, CFP MBA. I'm Mike Hebron, the Chief Operating Officer and Partner here at Level Financial Advisors. And today we are at Devolio in Williamsville on Main Street. And we're going to be talking today about the benefits of the Mediterranean diet and why it's great for your health in retirement or before retirement. We're going to bring Sally Gower in here, the owner of Eat Well, Western New York, or Buffalo. Eat Well Buffalo, we'll keep that. And so without further ado, here's Mike and Sally.
Great. So Sally, one of the exciting things about the Blue Zones and Dan Buettner and what he has found was the diet. And before we get into aspects of the Mediterranean diet, why is diet and focusing on a diet good for sustainability, or having a sustainable diet good for your health is probably the way I should phrase that.
Yeah, I love that question, Mike. You know, we have found that people are trying to count points or lose pounds or get to a dress size, and instead we need to be focused on healthy eating, healthy, sustainable eating. And what that means is you're in this for the long run. If you want to lose 10 pounds and you reach that point, then what? Right. Then you kind of just go back to the way you were. But with something like the Mediterranean diet or the Blue Zones, what we find is that's very sustainable because you can eat that way if you go out, you can eat that way as a kid or when you're retired, wherever you are in life. It's a very sustainable, practical, very livable type of diet.
Right. That's great. And so what is the Mediterranean diet? I mean, I know I've been talking about it. We haven't got into specifics. We just said this is one aspect of, wellness and something you want to maybe think about. So what is the Mediterranean diet?
Again, I love these questions. So the Mediterranean diet, actually it was back in the 1950s where they found that the countries that surrounded the Mediterranean Sea, like Greece and Italy, they had a much lower incidence of chronic disease. What do we mean by chronic disease? Things like cancer, heart disease, so many of the different diseases that really affect Americans. And when they compared the people in that area to the people in this country, what they found was that they were not only much healthier with less chronic disease, but they were living longer and they were living well. So you don't want to live to be 100 unless you're also really healthy. So that started in the 1950s, so the Mediterranean diet has actually been going on since then, and it's been around, decades and decades, very proven, and that's one of the things. The research and the outcomes of the Mediterranean diet show that we can live longer and live healthier by using the Mediterranean diet.
So people on a Mediterranean diet have a longer health span versus a lifespan, and we've talked a little bit about that, but that's some of the things they found.
Yes, absolutely. I love that question too, because that's what we look at.
Right.
The quality of life is so important. I'm a nutritionist. When people say to me, well, I just want to lose weight or I want to get into this size, I will say, well, what about your energy? How do you feel? Does your skin glow? And so many of those things we get from the foods that we eat in the Mediterranean diet. So
you mentioned something about glowing skin. So do you want to speak about a few benefits of the Mediterranean diet?
Absolutely.
I mean, we keep saying this. So why a Mediterranean diet?
Yeah.
You've alluded to some of them.
So actually, the Mediterranean diet is comprised of so many products of the earth. And what I mean by that, it's fruits and veggies and olives and the olive oil from olives. It's nuts and seeds. It also contains a little bit of animal protein. So you can have, but it's much different. Animal protein is much different than fish and seafood. Fish and seafood, they can have maybe 3-4 times a week because of the healthy fats, where the animal protein is kind of thought to be more of a celebratory event. So they will have that maybe 2 to 3 times a month, but only like if they're celebrating. And when they do, Mike, it's like a small amount. It's like the size of your palm is what they will allow for red meat. So all of these great earthy foods, plant-based proteins, and all the vitamins and the nutrients and the phytochemicals that you're getting from this food allows you to feel better, for your skin to glow, have all those wonderful benefits that you get from eating those foods.
And one of the ironic things that I've read on this, the little I have, is that It's almost the old poor man's diet, right?
Yes, it's the peasant's diet.
Yes, the peasant's diet.
And you know, the biggest negative I think that I've heard about the Mediterranean diet is people will say it's so expensive.
Yeah.
But really, when you think about the foods, the beans and the olives and things like a whole grain pasta, all the whole grain breads and pastas, and it's not expensive. It really isn't. It's the meat, because you're replacing that animal protein with plant protein. So, but it was considered at one point the peasant's diet, and it was farmers that were basically, you know, growing the food and cultivating it and eating it. So,
yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
And so, are there any negatives to the Mediterranean diet?
The two I've heard again is that it's expensive, and
Right.
you know, if you look at things like olive oil, possibly. But when you look at the health benefits of olive oil compared to like things like butter and the saturated fat products, there's and you don't have to use a lot of it. You can use it sparingly, or you can use a lot of it. It depends on what your goals are. Maybe one of the other negatives I hear is it takes so much work.
Right.
Compared to going through fast food at McDonald's and picking up a hamburger and fries, you do have to actually maybe chop up the veggies, but you know, if you want, you can buy the veggies already chopped up. It's so simple. We can get into the specifics of the Mediterranean diet and how to make different meals with it. But, you know, it doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be expensive.
That's, yeah, you can go into Wegmans, right, and they have vegetables chopped up for you. You don't even need to chop.
Yes,
right? Yes,
absolutely.
Or they even have it on the buffet if you need to get something to meet. And we'll talk about all that other stuff down the road. One other question I want to ask you before we end this segment is there evidence to support the Mediterranean diet that you can expand on?
And I am so about the evidence. I think as individuals, we have to try it and see if it works for us. That's really important, because once you start on the Mediterranean diet, you will see you do feel better. You have more energy. It's all those positives. You go get blood work from your physician, and you can see the difference that way. But I think there's a website called Old Ways, OLDWAYS. It's actually a nonprofit, third-party website that people can go to. They have, I want to say, hundreds of studies on there that show that the Mediterranean diet has reduced chronic disease and many of the different, and it's not just heart disease and cancer, it's things like multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, asthma, lupus. It has an effect on anything that's inflammatory, because it has an anti-inflammatory effect, and that's what you're getting with the Mediterranean diet. So it's Old Ways, and you can Google, you can search by whatever disease you're looking for. The problem is with diet and trying to get really like placebo-controlled type of studies.
Yep.
What happens is, you know, there's so many other factors besides diet. So we can't independently look at just diet, because we've got sleep, we've got stress, you've got exercise, all those other things are coming into play. But we can say from this research and the outcomes that definitely the results are there.
But it's interesting, we come full circle with what you just said. What we know and what made the Blue Zones so powerful was that they found that people ate this diet along with having a certain type of lifestyle, having family, having purpose, walking, all those other things, but this was a component of it.
Yes.
And so those places, those 6 or 7 locations, they have long-term benefits that seem to play out.
Absolutely, and I love that you are as passionate about the Blue Zones and the Mediterranean diet as I am, because, you know, it's huge. There are those lifestyle components. People get together more, and they celebrate, and they eat together, and they have some red wine with that. Not excess amount, but they'll have a glass or 2 of red wine. They will exercise more, definitely, and it's not getting up and, you know, going to the gym every day or running a marathon. It's just more movement that we incorporate into our lives. So all those things are so important with the Blue Zones and Mediterranean diet.
It isn't it? It just it makes for a wonderful retirement. It makes for a wonderful life when you adhere to all these principles that we've talked about before in the Blue Zones. So
Yes.
thank you for this intro.
Thank you.
And no, we're coming back in a minute to talk to you a little bit in more detail about how you can start to
Great.
incorporate a Mediterranean diet into your life.
Can't wait.
So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mike.